Greetings, nerds. This is Cena Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Doing very well, sir. How are you doing this evening? Looking
Mhm.
forward to talking some Shogun and three body problem. I've been getting a lot of people asking me about this stuff. That they know we like talk about these shows on our podcast.
No, that's cool. I'm glad people are not only enjoying the shows themselves, but also enjoying our discussions about them. And we will certainly get to both Shogun and Three Body Problem in a few minutes. We first have some news to talk about.
Yeah.
Starting off, Julia Garner is cast as a Silver Surfer in the Fantastic Four.
Yep.
Great. Cool. And the Joker 2 trailer's coming next week on April 9th, and it's confirmed to be a rated R movie. So we will be probably talking about that trailer when it comes out next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the sad news to bring up at the start of our show, but this tends to happen every now and then, is Chance Perdomo, Andre from V, tragically died in a motorcycle accident over the weekend. And thoughts and prayers go out to him, his family, and loved ones awake this tragedy. And like, needless to say, season 2 of Gen V is delayed indefinitely. So.
Yeah, very, very sad thing about Chance, and and he was en route to Toronto to start. They were going to start table reads for season 2 of Gen V, and yeah, obviously, this tragedy, completely overshadows anything as far as when they go back to work and stuff, and definitely thoughts and prayers out to his family and friends and the cast, and on this loss.
Yeah, I think it's always difficult in this situation because, like, somebody died and passed away, but you don't know that person, but they are in a project that you really love and support. And so selfishly, my mind first went to, oh man, that means season 2 won't get for a while. And it's so unfortunate. And then it's also the whole theory spiral of, well, what are they going to do? How will this change the story? What will the producers decide? Do you do a recast? Do you not? It's all up in the air at this point.
Yeah, because I mean, it wasn't like he was just a bit player. I mean, he had a very integral part of the show, and so yeah, I don't envy the hard decision that the creative team's going to have to make here with what to do moving forward.
Right, definitely. And so that brings us to Shogun episode 7, a stick of time. Outplayed by new alliances in Ahsoka, Taranganga is faced to carve out a new deal with a long-lost family member. So all these people who listen to us talk about this show and who tell you, do you immediately apologize for the butchering of names? Because I listen to other people talk about this show. I watch the show. And yet every time I'm sitting here starting this conversation, the moment I get to one of the names, I suddenly start to question everything. And we haven't even gone into Yabo Shige. Okay.
Hey, you nailed it. You nailed it.
I know. But it's still like,
yeah, I know. I feel that way too. Yeah. Sometimes it's like, don't feel bad. It happens. And we apologize in advance for Western tongues. It happens.
It does. Yeah. And Sake, he's the half brother, right?
Correct.
He's the younger half brother.
Yeah.
What did you think about his character in this episode?
Well, this whole episode, it was as I know with previous episodes, these titles really do a good job of foreshadowing many of the major plot points in it. As far as the character, he was very, very interesting as far as and thinking about our discussion with episode 6 and the Taiko and Lady Ochiba and the whole courtesan structure and how that it colored my like watching of this episode, because yes, he is Toranaga's younger brother, and I was thinking of our conversation about Lady Oshiba, why the Taiko why her son has this station. It's because she was a successful person to bear an heir. And so in Toranaga's family, clearly, his mother definitely was, a higher courtesan than in this concubine than his half brother here in this episode, which, not only the age difference that you have here, but also just the power, yes, he is also a lord, but because of where things fall, his rank is a little bit lower in station. He got the province that basically is just all he does is just overlook the water. He doesn't really have any like major things going on. So it was really cool, hearing that setup as far as their relationship, and we already knew that they hadn't really worked close, and to how things unfold in this episode. It was a fun episode to watch. It was a lot, all the action and stuff, especially given how things at the ended last week with the whole Crimson Sky, thinking we're going to have big conflict and stuff. And really all that pretty much didn't really happen until action-wise and really till the end of the episode. So those were some of my initial thoughts about him as a character.
So I'm confused. Did I miss something? Did they explain in the episode that both of them come from courtesans?
This is something I picked up from the official podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just sitting here like I did not understand that at all.
Yeah. No, but it did. Well, as I did before, as I was watching it, I was thinking like, yes, they're both lords, but why is Toranaga like, there were things when they first meet there in the woods, and and Sake like talks about the lack of action that he's seeing in his fiefdom versus what Toranaga is dealing with things going on there in Edo and Izu, where Yabashige has land. I just started thinking about all the ranks in our discussion last week, and then like I said, as I was listening to the official podcast, and they were talking about the family dynamic and all, how that just really it helped us reinforce my gut feelings and confirmed why the power structure is set up the way that it is within the family.
Right.
But also,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And also color some things that we'll get to in a bit, as far as like what was going on at the dinner before the big reveal there, the Lando Calrissian moment.
Well, I don't want to delay that. You always do this. You're like, we're gonna get to that.
I want to hear your. I want to hear your.
No.
I want to hear your thoughts, your initial thoughts on the episode before we go there.
This episode is fine. I didn't think anything really stood out to me. It's fine. I'm still trying to articulate what I didn't like about this episode. And I didn't listen to the official podcast. I listened to Roka's podcast, and his partner on that podcast, that after show, is a book reader, and apparently this episode strays the most from the book.
Mm-hmm.
And he hated this episode.
Well, yeah, honestly, I've stopped listening to them, just because I wanted to just sort of formulate my own opinions and stuff, not being a book reader, and also I think what I like about the official podcast, not to get into like let's talk about the episode, not the podcast about the podcast, but they just keep it kind of just straight and just fill in the historical gaps and give some context for things that are transpiring in the show, and also the official the web page for the show does that a good job of that as well. So we recommend that to folks if you're looking for context or things to help you like figure out some of the dynamics and stuff going on. The Shogun companion website also has some really good things to help frame some of these things that are going on in the show.
Right. So yeah, so he didn't like this episode, and he was articulating why. And me not being a book reader, I found it very interesting because I'm like, I didn't read the books, so I didn't realize that none of this happened. But I walked away from the episode being like, oh my God, like we're still stuck in the same situation. Like we're there was a lack of progression overall in this episode for me. And I think book readers approach this episode and just are mad about the use of Blackthorn. Me, a person who's never liked Blackthorn, I can't say it's because of the use of him. I just like this is just classic storytelling. It's like, okay, we're building up to a big fight, and it looks like everything's going in favor of our hero, our main, like Toranaga. But now we have to basically take away his army, like make sure his back is up against the wall as we head into the third and final act. Like it was much more like, oh, okay, I know he's going to get out of this. I don't know how he's going to get out of this. But I also just was like, cool. This feels like a filler. It feels like a filler.
I completely, this is going to be fun tonight because I completely disagree. I don't think this, but I think I will agree with you that as far as like no progression, I would agree with Mariko and Blackthorn. Things did seem kind of stagnant.
I thought they had one of the most interesting scenes in the episode. So, because that scene wasn't about them, it was about Bintaro. But everybody hates Bintaro for some reason. Because I just want to say, like, we got into a deep discussion about Bintaro and why he continues to not allow Mariko her one wish. Yeah. And I think everyone should revisit that discussion based off of the scene in this episode where, again, he is faced with this situation where he wants to kill Blackthorn. Toranaga is like, I want both of these people to be alive, so I'm going to use your wife against you. And he said, if Blackthorn dies, so does Mariko, because they are both a part of this affair that you are alluding to. And Bintaro does not give in. He wants to, but he doesn't. And I think that is so interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely, I'm glad you brought that scene up because it's definitely one that did stand out to me in the episode. And yeah, there was, so when I say stagnation as far as them, I mean, it's more just like, it was just like it just reinforced our discussion before and reinforced like the status quo of Blackthorn, the triangle there, as far as him wanting to kill Blackthorn, Tornaga's forbidding it, and Mariko, wants to end things, but Tornaga's not allowing it. So that's what I meant by it just felt like it was. That to me was where things did feel status quo, but other parts of the episode I felt did progress things quite a bit.
Yeah. You can go on because I honestly am curious about what parts in particular.
Well, I mean, since I did bring up the dinner, I mean, I think the dinner with the as I joked, the Lando Calrissian moment, because the Tornaga goes to his half brother, like Han Solo goes to Bespin looking for a refuge from the circumstances that they're under. And in this case, Tornaga, his army's decimated. He needs help to do this Crimson Sky plan, and so he goes to his brother, and of course his brother, unbeknownst to Tornaga, sees, now that there's like two vacancies on the Council of Regents, due to Tornaga's resigning, and then of course the other regent getting killed in last week's episode. Sake seizes the moment to basically one up his half brother and gains a foothold on the council, gets a seat on the council, and carries out the mission of getting this impeachment done. So so even though it seemed like things were kind of hitting a wall, and Tornaga's always figuring out ways out of things, this is that moment where it was just like, oh, instead of Tornaga always being one step of what's going on, this was the first time I think I felt in this series where he really doesn't know. He's not one step ahead of everybody else as far as.
Right. I mean, that's fair. I think that was the whole intention of this episode. I mean, like I said before, it's about, the purpose is to make sure that the viewers believe that there is no way out of this. The back is up against the wall. Everything, like all the plans, plan A, B, and C, are a no-go. So it makes sense. I mean, Blackthorn's going to do something that's going to help lead to victory, whatever. So I guess I understand what you're saying. I just feel like his army, I keep having to remind myself when the earthquake happened. Because I feel like it's been 4 episodes and maybe it's been 3 episodes, but I'm just like, what is time right now? How long have we been here? Yeah, so it felt more like, okay, you're still trying to figure out your way out of this situation, because he like, going to the half brother was a last ditch effort. So he kind of didn't want to do that because he kind of knew. So there's a part of me that, I mean, I think Gia said it, or Jin from the Willow World said it even to Tornaga and implied it. Like, he invited his brother here, knowing their relationship, knowing what's going on with the council. He's too smart to not think about that being the outcome. So it just, I don't know. I don't buy that everything completely took him by surprise. So.
Well, and maybe it didn't take him by surprise, but he did seem. I'm glad you brought up Jin, because that I wanted to talk about that conversation next. It did seem at this point, and he was kind of resigned to his fate after Sake did pull the power play there at the dinner, and handed him the impeachment papers and also the execution warrant for Nagato.
But we've seen him resign to his fate in earlier episodes before they even left Osaka. Like, he's like, I'm just gonna chill here. You all are gonna leave. And then he snuck his way out.
Yeah, but see, this time he didn't sneak his way out. He's just like, okay.
We don't know that yet, Will. We've only seen, like, we have not watched the next episode. We don't know. What I'm saying, though, is like, he seemed more resigned, but I think it's all for show. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it fully, because the man has proven, like, done this stoicness before, and yet still had a plan B up his up his sleeve.
Yeah.
And he still, at the end of the day, Toranaga still knows Blackthorn and his cannons are the Joker cards up his sleeve.
Yeah.
That like Crimson Sky or not, he still has some pieces to move around this board. So I guess it just, to me, when I say there was a lack of movement, I understand how the episode connects from the previous one to this one and where the characters are and the purpose of this episode. I just feel like it was kind of like a filler where I'm just like, okay, well, now we have to get here where all hope is lost so that we can uprise and get victory.
Okay. Yes, I think fillers. I see where your point. I think fillers, and maybe it's just because when I hear filler, I just take that as a negative connotation with an episode or something else. I mean, it's not like thinking back to our Arrowverse days where we had like the Flash filler, where it's just a junk episode where they're just like a bottle show where they're just trying to get through. I don't feel like this was not, to me, at least in my definition of a filler. I didn't feel like this. I don't think it was a filler episode. I mean, I think it progressed things significantly, even foreshadowing in some respect to getting back to our with Jen and Toranaga. I'm glad you mentioned that because you're right. I mean, Toranaga and even Jen are both long-term thinkers. I mean, with Jen, with her proposal to him with wanting to set up a district in Edo and it is foreshadowing that does lead to the geishas down the line. I mean, because her courtesans are the forerunners of that. Because Edo basically is the precursor to Tokyo. So I see that. That's where I was just like, there's things going that are happening here that are moving the story forward, and even Toranaga like does that, whenever he's preparing for whatever eventuality is going to come his way. He makes sure he sets aside the land for her and all that kind of stuff. So things, to me, it was like things were progressing.
Yeah. Right. So I guess so. I mean, historically, I'm just gonna move on to the final point about the Willow World, because I thought it was strange. Well, I don't know how to explain this point, but so Toranaga writes Jin into her will, but this is before his son decides to try to kill his uncle in the Willow World. And so then the question is, did Jin know about this plan, and will she receive a punishment in the next episode?
No, I don't think so. No, I was gonna say I think the courtesan now Kuki knew. I think she knew what was going down, but I don't think. I mean, the only thing Jen made. I mean, I guess to your point, Jen might have known something was going down because she did adjust her fee for Lady Kiku down so that she could have that conversation with Toranaga. So that's what the whole stick of time comes from. Is yeah. So maybe that to your point. I mean, maybe she from their conversation, maybe she was like, and they both have done this. Like even with Kiku, like I think she said things to Ami, and to or maybe Gia said things to Ami in the past too, to sort of plant seeds in people's minds about stuff. So maybe that there is. I can give you that.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not sure what you're. I'm like glad that you're agreeing with me, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know if we're actually agreeing about the same thing.
Well, no, I agree with you that she may have known what was going on. But I think fundamentally we both are. I think we're at odds in that whether or not, and what I was saying to you was, I don't feel that this was a filler episode.
No, I know. Oh, we're back there.
Yeah, sorry, I know.
I'm never going to use the word filler again. My God, I get it. Okay. Okay. Since this is not a filler episode, I retract my statement. Good Lord.
No,
What
I'm not saying.
I talk about, because I have I just wanted to talk about the end, the middle. Yeah. So anything else about this episode? I'm losing track here about where we're going.
No, it's not. I think we hit most of the major points, in a roundabout way. I mean, other than, do you think Nagado is dead, or do you think he's? Yeah.
Was that are people questioning if he's still alive?
I've seen some stuff out there. I've seen some stuff out there, but I think he's a goner.
We actually witnessed him dying. There was no Buntaro. Okay.
Maybe that's why people are like, maybe there's a chance.
Oh, you guys are not playing the same rules anymore. Okay, are you sure that there's nothing else? Because you really enjoyed this episode, so I just want to make sure you get all of your points out there.
I mean, I guess as far as Yabushige, I mean, he's still the MVP of the show when he has these moments, especially like with Black Lord and stuff this week. But and also, he still, the disrespect the poor guy has. I mean, Toranaga, his half brother is asking for Izu, and they're like, oh yeah, you can have it. So Yabushige just keeps getting shit on.
Well, he is he's a rat of some sort, so makes sense.
But no, like I said, I think I think this is definitely, I know sometimes we'll have weeks where one of us feels an episode better than the other, and I think this is definitely one of those weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I always enjoy talking through those points, and sometimes you convince me, but so far you have not convinced me of anything.
Wasn't trying to.
No, I think you were. I think you always are. But hey, maybe you swayed some of our listeners who might have started on my side on the beginning, but no, this is still a good show. I'm not saying it's a bad show. It's just, at the end of the day, this episode was nowhere near one of my favorites. I think one of my problems is that I think in the first few episodes, there was infighting happening, and then there was also the larger picture about the world at the time, and Spain and all of these other countries. Mm-hmm. And I really thought that was fascinating. But since leaving Osaka, we've gotten very little of the Spanish and their role in all of this politicking. So that kind of lost some steam there for me. That's
a good point. We haven't seen the Portuguese much, and I think maybe maybe some people, why, as you were noting, with folks feeling like Blackthorn maybe getting sidelined or whatever, that bigger picture as far as it's getting so insular, I guess. That's what it sounds like what you're saying, and the larger, how this plays out in the larger world is definitely has receded some over the last few episodes.
Right. Yeah. But at the same time, I understand why. It's not making sense. They're not telling the stories the way I would want them to, in a way. Or the way that really intrigues me. Mm-hmm. So on that note, we move to episode 3 of Three Body Problem, Destroyer of Worlds. Obsessed with their virtual reality quest, Jin and Jack race to solve a complex riddle, but advancing to the next level brings harrowing consequences. Will, what did you think about this episode?
Actually, I want you to go first this time.
So a few things about this episode, and I'm sorry for the stream of consciousness that is about to occur, but when we're talking a show like this, I don't know. So I found it interesting to watch. I'm so glad that these two episodes we watched back to back.
I agree.
They answered a lot of questions from the first two episodes. Almost too many questions, in my opinion. So basically, this episode is mainly about the game, which Will was correct that it was, what's his face? Evans is behind the game. We learned about that. Not a lot of flashbacks in these two episodes, just FYI. Not a lot of flashbacks, especially in this episode. I don't think there's a single flashback in this episode. So we learn that Evans is behind the game. We learn that this killed me. I felt so bad for you because if anybody listened to us talk about the first two episodes, Will had a theory about why this was called Three Body Problem. and in this episode, it was explained that it's called Three Body Problem because in the game, there's a three body problem, which is basically where three bodies, you can't predict what's going to happen in space when there are three bodies. Yeah. So like a 3-star system, which it's until it's then I think by the end of it, after they figured that out, Jin figures that out, and then they advance to level 4, and then they meet creepy girl. So they meet her, and then she explains that the game portrays what actually is happening to the aliens who Wenji in China all those years ago basically told them to come and here's the coordinates to our Earth because their planet, what are the aliens called? The Sati? Santi are on a planet that is essentially being played out in this game. And so they make this communication with Wenji, who invites them to our planet. Now, here's my thing. And I'm sure I don't think I went too deep. I don't think I went at all into the next episode. But in the next episode, it is explained that it'll take them 400 years to get here.
Yep.
And at that point, I immediately thought to myself, I'm like, why is this so urgent that we figure this stuff out? We got 400 years. What's with I have a lot of questions about why like scientists are dying and all this stuff, but like I said, they answered some almost too many questions for me, but at the same time there's still like some where it's like, wait, what's happening? So Will, on that note, what did you think about the whole explanation about the game, the Santi, and them basically killing your least favorite character?
So as far as so if you like the game aspect of the first two episodes, this episode was definitely for you. And I did like the games, but also I think it did the right thing by ending the levels, because I was beginning to wonder, like, are we going to get a whole season of like, we're going to keep leveling up and leveling up and leveling up. And in this episode, they're like, whenever we do learn that we get to level 4, and basically that was like your invitation to whatever the group of Santi cult followers are. I don't think they've given them a name yet. But we had a resolution. So I was like, okay, fair enough. No more, we learned, we did get confirmation to our theory last week that Evans was behind the game. And and as far as the three-body problem thing, I was going to get into the science about that last week, and I think I touched on it some, which they did, but they did really flesh it out and explain it. I know they mentioned it in episode 2 last week with the sun, Jupiter, and Earth, using Jupiter as using the sun as a an antenna to like magnify the signal that Wenji ended up doing. But then this week they really got into it, got into the whole classic Newtonian physics of what the scientific explanation of what it is, but also, in the context of the game, as far as when Jin and Jack, really learned what the true purpose of the game was, which was, and we've gotten sprinkles of it where they were really exploring, what's stronger? Is it mysticism, religion, or is science? As far as these challenges within the game. And then once they figure out what the true motivations of the game was and the purpose for it, I agree with you that it was really good to watch 3 and 4 together, because they definitely complemented each other, watching these two as a unit.
Right. Wenjay's daughter Vera dies, and she kills herself.
Yeah.
It's very clear she kills herself. And she talks about God. Now, we're still not sure, because here's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
Okay, hear me out.
Yeah.
Wenjay gives the headset to Jin, and she tells her, Vera has been obsessed with this game. I don't know where it came from, blah, 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 lie.
Right.
And just invites her. Now, we also know that Jack can't wear that headset because he wasn't invited.
Yeah.
I don't think Vera was playing that game.
I agree, especially when we saw whenever Augie tried the game, and then she got the same, same results that Jack did.
Right.
Yeah.
I think Jack couldn't play the game until he actually received one. And I keep thinking about the way Vera died. It seems like with the game, because they're being recruited, they're being sussed out through the game to join this cult.
Right.
And then if they fail, and especially if they fail, well, in Jack's case, especially if they learn really what's going on here, well, then you gotta go. And so they send Tatiana after your ass, and she kills you, and despite being watched by the police. Clarence, I love how they show, like, in the 4th episode, I kept thinking about how Clarence was right outside Jack's house as he's brutally murdered. And then he's sitting there telling Jen, but don't worry, I'll be right outside. You're going to be fine. Like, where were you when Jack died? Let's go back there. So anyways, so with Vera, I feel like she was going through what Augie went through with the countdown, which Augie has a very small part in these 2 episodes, which I found interesting. It was much more focused on Jin and Jack in the game, because with Augie, we do see her turn back on her work, and immediately the countdown resumes, and so she shuts it down again. Like, this isn't something like she can step away from and then return to. No, she's been tied to this thing. And so anyway, I just felt like bringing that up about.
That's a good point, because especially with all these scientists, I mean, there's, they know that 32 have died in the past few months. And we're seeing, and Vera, was one, and then now we're seeing it with Augie, and I guess, and I know we'll probably learn more about why this is happening, and and thinking about, like, with, you made a great point about Jen and Winjay lying to Jen about the game, and then later, when Jen is being recruited, they like use the sort of similar parallels as far as between Winjay and Jen, as far as losing their fathers, losing their family. At least, granted, Winjay lost her dad, in a cultural revolution, but Jen losing her family, and through floods, but just trying to find that I guess that kindred common bond of loss. And
I don't think it's trying to find that. It's trying to find a weakness and a point of manipulation.
Yeah, and that's where I was going with that, is that they used that. They figured she was susceptible to being in this movement, and I guess they thought Jack was too, but they miscalculated with him.
No, oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, I don't think they miscalculated. I think they knew all along.
And I guess, and I bring that up because I'm just trying to figure out, like, with these 32, and now Jack, with now the Oxford 5 has become the Oxford 4, and maybe 3, depending on if we lose Will or not this season. Is Asante behind this, or
behind what?
Or behind these scientists' deaths, or well, maybe not directly behind it, but I guess Evans and Winjay are, just because they're maybe a threat to, like, their goals.
Right. There, we have barely, and this is actually a good segue to get into the big parts of episode 4, our Lord. I think, to your point, maybe not directly connected to the Sante, of course, because they're 400 years away from arriving officially, but at the same time, they have been able to provide some sort of technology, some sort of thing, because you got Tatiana walking all over the place and then erasing CCTV footage. So like, there's clearly been a transference of technology, at the least, up to Evans and Winjay, that allows them to use that in terms of protection. And there's been enough of it over the years where we see Winjay basically tell them, like, I'm only here talking to you because they're allowing that to happen. Like, I found it very interesting. The subtle, now I'm going to say this, while at the same time, considering this episode is called Our Lord, like, so far in the first 4 episodes, they have been toying with religious motifs and metaphors.
Yep.
I just hope that in the next 4 episodes, they don't go overboard. like I mean, they kind of are starting to. I mean, the fact that the ship, the oil rig that the whole cult basically lives on, is called Judgment Day. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
But it's also, I mean, besides this transference of technology, we learn at the end of episode 3 and throughout episode 4 is that Evans, he prides himself on reading stories to the Lord. Yeah. And he started with Hansel and Gretel, and then he made the awful mistake of reading Red Riding Hood. And initially with Hansel and Gretel, our Lord, who's the same voice, the voice that he hears from the Sante, is the same voice that is heard in the game itself.
Yep.
The female voice. And in response to her questions about Hansel and Gretel, he explains that humans have a lack of fear, and then she goes on and says a lack of fear leads to extinction. Humanity must learn to fear again. And just when he thought it was dark, then it gets a bit darker as he I don't know why Evans thought this was a good idea. Like, I'm just gonna go ahead and explain to them what lying means, and admits that I lie sometimes too. Oh wait, humans lie. It's a trait. We don't understand. What do you mean? What is this concept of lying? To deceive?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh God. Yeah. Dude, didn't think that one through.
Well, they are 400 years away from getting here.
400 years away, but they have the technology to like talk to the Lord can talk to us instantaneously. And they could create these games, and
but it has been, I mean, it took 6 years for Wenjie to get a response from her first message. So since then, the communication I'll buy. I do agree with you. Why do you have all this technology if they're not here yet? And it's also going to take them so long to get here. And also, why are so many scientists dying now, even though it's going to take years for them to get here? Like,
maybe the Santi are like killing these scientists, because like, for example, Augie's work. I mean, we saw like this microfiber. It's a threat. I mean, because by the time they get here, they, whereas now we're just little, we're sheep.
Oh, right. I totally understand.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
I just don't quite get how.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I get that. I do get some of the how, and I think it gets to what, some of the fear element that the Santi were trying to get across to Evans there, that the humans must learn to fear again, because I guess it gets into that whole thing, like looking into the eyes of God, and the religion element, like you noted, they are essentially God. They're doing these things maybe to like kill these scientists and stuff, to just one, keep the people who are doing all these masterful things in physics and metallurgy and all these things in science from basically help keep humanity in their place. So
maybe, but they also don't seem to understand a lot about humanity, as we're learning through Evans, and he's been telling them these stories. So I don't think it's the Santi who are necessarily like saying, oh, these guys have to go because they're going to be a threat and all that. I view it more as Wenjie and Evans, who have identified these scientists as being the threat. They communicate that to them, and then through some mechanism that I'm sure we're going to get the answer to within the next 2 episodes, they receive the technology that allows them to protect and to minimize scientific advancement. Well,
and I'm glad you brought that up, and I thought about the first episode. It goes back to that moment when she is like sitting there and she's pondering whether or not to hit send on that message, because because of all the things that she has been through up to that point and her feelings about humanity. And then you think about Evans, whereas whenever they, in this episode, we see how they reconnect. Of course, when we first meet Evans, he's the young idealist who just happens to have an oil tycoon for a father. And then they meet in the 80s, and now he's the oil tycoon, and he's like, yeah, I'm a billionaire, but I'm a billionaire who's going to do right with his money, and I'm still that idealist you met who wanted to build the trees in the forest and stuff. But at the same time, you're doing all these other things that I guess trying to be a benevolent baron, but I mean, those things are kind of like oxymoron.
Well, they both of them. Evans, we don't fully know because we've spent way more time with Wenjie, especially in her past and what led her to push send.
Yeah.
And she at that point was like, well, F you guys. I know how to use this technology. I'm going to use it. I'm going to take the side of them because they're going to wipe your asses out.
Yeah.
Like, fuck you.
Yeah.
So she had sent. And then personally, I just think she wanted to like fuck Evans, so she.
Yeah. Well, they do. I mean, whenever they kissed, I was like, oh, so I guess this is Vera's father.
Well, see, I still question that just because he didn't stay at the funeral, and also Wade didn't know about. Wade didn't know really the connection between Evans, at least from what I understood from the first episode, that at the time, Wade did not understand the connection between Evans and Wenjie. Now, if Wade, who knows a lot so far about what's really going on, and also it's like, okay, then why haven't you been killed yet? But whatever. Like for that to be, for him to be Vera's father, like that raises a lot more questions for me about like, okay, so at what point did you guys start this investigation and learn all of this stuff and really go after Evans? Because you apparently missed a few decades there.
And maybe and maybe they did. Well, I figured because they did lose connection with one another.
And then also, why wasn't Vera on the boat? If like, just hear me out. If Wenjie and Evans had a love child, let's go fan fiction on this. Why wasn't that child brought up on the boat, on the oil rig?
Yeah. So that's what you just blew my theory up. I
mean, it just it doesn't make it wouldn't. It'll take a lot of explanation to make that work. I mean, they could because they wanted. I don't know, but it is. So we'll learn more.
But clearly, regardless of whether they had a child or not, I mean, there was a bond in a relationship there where whenever they did meet up in the 80s, she confided to him, here's what I heard. And he took it and ran with it, and and got the Judgment Day boat, because we later see them, because the tower in China is no longer there, the communications tower is gone, but he finances the radar, the antenna. The Judgment Day boat is there. One of the things they are, that we do see in this fourth episode is, they are recruiting the chosen ones to your religious element of this. I mean, they do kind of see themselves as the chosen ones, and they're the protectors. And they're the protectors. So fuck the rest of these people, but so all these folks on the and like the story with the little girl. I mean, with your point about him, the fondness of telling stories. I mean, he does the same thing to the little girl, on the boat, and also it's just like, okay, I see where these connect. I'm seeing all these different pieces of the puzzle are all starting to converge into one singular story here, which is, Wenjie is the mastermind behind all of this, and Evans is the financer, who also believes in this. And you're right. I mean, Wade and Clarence definitely missed some elements, in particular as far as piecing these together whenever he is when they confront her at the end of episode 4 after the arrest. So
to speak about the arrest, because Jin essentially at the end of episode 3 gets invited to advance to the 4th level, which is going to this orientation, this gathering of sorts, in which the founder is there, who turns out to be Wenjie. And then of course, everything kind of goes to shit as the police invade and arrests happen. Tatiana escapes magically. Even though she does end up shooting Jin, and Jin getting injured, not dead, injured.
Yep.
But why do you think that happened? Because Wenjie has the line that I said before where, like, this only happened because our Lord allowed it to happen. So where do you fall? Are you on the side that, yeah, the Santi are in the know about that being a possibility, or are they also just like, well, F you guys are a bunch of liars, we're coming?
I think they're coming. I think Evans miscalculated in the sense that when he told the story about the liars and the Santi were like, we can't trust liars, we're afraid of you. Communications ended. He was treating them like he was just treating another human being, and didn't think that the Santi has their own system of ethics and morals and code. And like you said earlier, it's like, how could we expect these aliens to like understand our human concepts of deceit and lying? So I think that was a miscalculation on his part. Whether or not, what Wenjie was saying there, this is our Lord's will, it just sounds like any kind of, your run-of-the-mill cult leader who is so wrapped up in their rightness of their worldview, that whether or not that's true or not, she believes that.
Right. No, I think both almost can be true.
Yeah.
I think in a weird way, she's not wrong. I don't know at what time that conversation between the Santi and Evans ended and her speech got interrupted. So I don't know if he relayed like, uh-oh, our Lord, like, we're on the bad side, we got to fix this. I don't know if that was like when Jay understood that had happened at this point.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll get some sense about the timeline of when those two events occurred, because they could have occurred simultaneously for all we know.
I took it as that. That's the way I took it. That
right.
These things are happening in real time together. Yeah.
Oddly enough, I think we did a good job about going over the final point I want to touch on.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he's kind of someone who definitely has a part to play, but I haven't seen too much of him. But where do you think Saul is in all of this? Because I know he has that relationship with Augie. And he's honestly the first one, I think, of the Oxford Five we technically meet.
Yeah.
And yet he's kind of there understanding things, but also not. And so do you think that he'll be used more in later episodes, or like what we've currently are receiving of him, it'll stay about the same?
I think we'll see more of him. I think he's the wild card here. Because if I recall, whenever they had the game, he didn't really. It was in episode 3. Was he first reticent to like explore the tech behind the game, or and like I said, I watched it earlier in the week too, so that detail, I can't remember that detail.
He agreed with Augie.
Yeah,
they should never play again.
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah, so with that being said, I mean, I think Saul and Augie, to answer your question about Saul, yes, I think he's going to be more of a player down the line. He's sort of that bridge character who, Like he was there when Augie saw the sky blink, and he was with Will when they were going through Jack's things, and so he's sort of that thread. He's sort of like us. He's the guy in the story. He's watching things unfold, and like us as the audience member.
Right.
Augie, I don't know. I'm just not feeling Augie. Augie and Will are still two characters where I'm just sort of like, as far as the Oxford 4 now, where I'm just kind of like, I could take him or leave him.
I like Augie. Yeah. I like her so far. So I technically like all of the Oxford 5. Honestly, Will is the least, but he's dealing with cancer, and it just seems so bizarrely different from what everyone else is dealing with. And then that you have Saul, who's not really been touched by any of this so far, except that his friend died. So and Vera died. So it's
and also with Saul, he and Augie have a very conflicted it's complicated as far as their relationship status.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that leads us, brings us to the end of this. We will return next week with the next 2 episodes. Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Will M. Polk, WILLMPOLK.
And you can find me there too at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at Scene and Nerd. Friend us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and Threads at scene_n_nerd. And visit our website, www.sceneandnerdpodcast.com. But most importantly, rate, follow, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.